what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966. 66!
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
All right, what you guys are all here for today's guest, Anthony Mark Vitale. Anthony is a filmer / photographer who's been in the game for a long time. He was first introduced to skateboarding growing up in Miami in the early 80s, moving to Ontario and becoming fully engulfed in the local skate scene in Toronto, riding half-pipe and vert and documenting tons of iconic photos and filming his friends, and soon being introduced to snowboarding and realizing, shit, this is fun too. And, like most of us, thought probably this was a little bit easier than skateboarding. He moved to Whistler, where he realized that he had a talent behind the lens. Soon he started hanging out and partying with tons of different friends and was filming for movies such as Whiskey, one of Canada's iconic movies that was kind of the first of its kind. Before Jackass, there was Whiskey. And started filming for such iconic movies such as TrueLife, one of my favorite videos of all time, Stand and Deliver, Pulse, The Wildcats, Shakedown, Positron, The Big Blind, Wear It Well. He was the filmer at DC for like 6 years. That's how I got to know him. When I was on DC for a short minute, Anthony, I traveled around. He was the best to hang out with. Modest, for sure. Stories for days. Snowboarding, would not be what it is today without Anthony's filming. He's literally shaped the lives of thousands, including myself, by documenting some of the best snowboarding that's ever been done. Big fan. Breaking news. Oh shit, JP Walker is off Stepchild snowboards. What was that? Stepchild? Does E-Man or Lane or Al ride for them? Or Joe, Simone, or JP? Is anybody there still? Now you may be asking yourself, what happened to that company? And you and everybody else is thinking the same thing. What did happen to that company? I kind of think JP is going to start his own company. Maybe. Maybe not. Time will tell. All right, a quick word from our sponsor, and then straight to the show. If you're looking for a new comfy-ass pair of boots this winter, look no further than the Vans High Standard OG Jake Kuzik Pro model that comes in khaki, green, and white. People are going to be seeing your feet and go,
Damn, those some nice shoes.
The best thing about the Jake Kuzik boot is you're going to ride a little bit more like Jake. And who doesn't want to ride a little bit more like Jake? This boot is about a 5 out of 10 on the flex scale, and it's designed meticulously around park, all mountain borders, and people who want to get into the nitty-gritty of street filming. If you want to ride a little bit more like Jake, look no further. The Vans High Standard OG. Cop a pair today on vans.com, vans.ca, or any fine snowboard shop in your local neighborhood. Hey, just a quick heads up, this podcast was recorded about a year ago. Unfortunately, I had some trouble with the audio, and thankfully, my good friend Robin Taylor, who you may know from the Crabnito videos, reached out to one of his friends, and he actually saved the audio on this whole podcast. Incredible, as this is one of my favorite episodes I've recorded to date. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Anthony. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We have my favorite filmer ever, Anthony. Middle name's Mark, right?
Yep.
Vitale. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man.
Good to come out to your house in Squamish here. It's a beautiful piece of property.
Thanks, buddy. This is my little paradise.
It's actually I don't come here much. I think when I first got on DC, probably 7 years ago, for whatever reason, I came to this piece of property. And Mads Johnson was here, actually. Mads and a handful of other DC guys. We had a bonfire in your backyard. And I was like, this is... I've never been down the Squamish Valley, and it's called Paradise Valley. I've never been here, and I was blown away by how beautiful it was.
Well, there's the Squamish Valley, and then there's the Paradise Valley. So
Oh, are we in the Paradise?
we're in the Paradise Valley.
Yeah, you picked the right one.
Thanks, buddy.
This is Paradise.
Yeah.
So
It's
how
funny
long?
that those guys used to come out here and we used to play paintball down by the river.
Paintball?
Yeah. It was good
You used to
times.
play paintball?
Yeah, me, Mikey, Leyland, Pavo, Ika, Arrow, Mods, and JP. There was a little time there that we played paintball by the river.
Do you have a paintball gun?
I do, yeah.
Do you have like an arsenal of them, or do you just got one?
No, I just bought the basic one.
Does it still work, or is it down there just collecting dust?
I don't know where it is. I'd have to dig it up. But mine was just your basic, one-shot paintball gun.
It was Bunker Bay, right?
Bunker Bay, that's right.
Mikey built like this little paintball paradise by the river there.
Well, it went from a paintball zone to a sweat lodge zone that Mikey spends a lot of time at. You'll see different photos of him and
That was
in the
actually
tub.
probably the last time I saw you was at the Sweat Lodge. I think it was Mikey's girlfriend Jess's birthday. And like Kale Browner, there's a Sweat Lodge. You drove out your ATV with
Yeah.
your little one just for the day. You brought us a bunch of firewood.
Yeah. So I'd go down there and bring those guys some wood because they need a lot of wood to get those rocks hot. So yeah, I'd go down there a lot.
We call
But
it
it was a paintball zone first.
originally.
Yeah, originally. Yeah.
Did you scope out that zone? Is that your doing?
Yeah, I did. I would. I've just made a trail down there, and it was just some place I'd go down with my dogs and stuff. So
How long have you been like? So when did you move down to this property? You've owned this place for what?
like almost 18 years.
Oh wow!
Maybe almost 20. I'm not sure. It's been.
How long have you been in the Whistler? Because I mean, you're originally from Miami, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Miami and moved back to Toronto because that's where I was born when I was like 19. So I spent all my, my childhood in Miami.
Wow. Like from what age to what age were you in Miami for then?
Well, probably from about 2.5 till like I was 19. I went to high school in Miami.
Crazy. And so Miami, like I've never even been. Will Smith's got a track about it. Did you like Miami?
Well, when I lived there, it was a lot different than it is now. I mean, South Beach was, wasn't a nice neighborhood, and it wasn't so developed. It was, the population was really small. But, in the 80s, it got really crazy. And, it was a pretty dangerous place to live. So when I was done with high school and didn't do well in college, my parents were just like, we got to get you out of here because, you're not doing anything. You're going to get yourself into trouble.
Did you have like a lot of friends that kind of went in the trouble path? I mean, if you're 19 in Miami, I mean, like I can imagine. I just know some people that. I mean, I'm from just outside of Winnipeg, kind of the same thing. A little bit of the reason why I probably moved out here.
Yeah, well, that's the
tougher.
thing. So there was just a lot of kids getting into trouble, and a lot of kids from affluent families getting into trouble. It was a dangerous place for a teenager, and my parents saw that, and they thought it'd be a good idea if I moved back to Toronto, because my dad had been spending a lot of time in Toronto trying to get work going because the economy had crashed in the 80s as well, kind of like it did in 2008. So, times were tough, and my dad went back to Toronto to try to get some stuff going. So I had an opportunity to go, back to Toronto and live with my dad, and I did it.
Wow. And are you happy you made that decision?
Yeah.
Were you bummed at the time, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, did you like Miami and you're like, I think I'm going to stay here. I got my friends here from high school, maybe a lady, whatever. Or were you like, what, this place is kind of messed up. I'm happy to move, like happy to bounce. And
Well, the thing is I knew Toronto really well because I would go up there in the summers my whole life as a kid. My parents would go back to see the family in Toronto. So I spent summers there. So I was really familiar with it. And the summer before I moved up there, I had met a bunch of skaters and had a bunch of friends from the summer. And so when they suggested me moving up there, it was easy for me because I was just like, I'll just go hang out with, all my buddies. And so it was easy. I just basically said, I'll go to Toronto.
so when was the first time you would have gotten like introduced into, I mean, clearly skateboarding before snowboarding. I mean, I don't even know if snowboarding was around in those early 80s. I mean, barely. And I mean, did you see snowboarding first or skateboarding first? And were you immediately like attracted to that or?
No, I was into skating. Like I always skated just for fun. And, skating, there wasn't really a big skate scene when I learned to skateboard. But when I was up in Toronto for the summer and then eventually moved back there, skating was just blowing up again. So there was a big skate scene in Toronto, and that's what I just jumped right into that skate scene, and and that's how I got introduced to snowboarding. I had never even heard of snowboarding when I moved to Toronto when I was 19.
And that would have been when, like, would that have been in the early 80s then, or?
Late 80s.
Late 80s.
Late 80s, like 88 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard for me to put timelines on stuff, but
Yeah,
it would have
roughly.
to be late 80s when I moved up to Toronto.
And so you first picked up skateboarding. What age do you think you had to skate then? Like, did you have to skate when you were 19, or did you, like, skate in Miami a little bit?
No, I skated in Miami. My mom bought a skateboard to me and my brother, and I probably was skating when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
So, like, that would have been early 80s then, or like,
Yeah. My first board was Dwayne Peters. I mean,
what? I don't even know who that guy is.
yeah. I mean, if you look, you're in my office. I'm 15 there. So
That's you skating?
yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna take a photo of that. Wow,
yeah. So
dude, that looks like it should be in like the Skate Hall of Fame. That looks like it could be in a Thrasher magazine from '82.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's probably 19.
He's skating looks like a mini ramp, and he's kind of like doing like maybe a pivot to fakie.
Yeah,
It's super
just a
steep.
turn,
In
but-
shorts, no shirt, knee pads. Dang.
Those were the first Quicksilver board shorts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That photo is incredible. I'm sorry, I'm actually like blown away. Way to go, dude. 82? I wasn't even born yet, and you were skating mini ramps.
So I mean, I always just did it for fun. Never thought of being a pro skater or anything. It was just something to do. And when I moved to Toronto, there was such a big skate scene. There was just there was so much going on, and I was never really that good, and I could get around, I could skate vert a bit, but I knew right away I wasn't going to be as good as these guys in Toronto. So I would just skate and have fun, and then eventually I bought a camera and started taking photos of everybody. And that's how I kind of got into, shooting action sports, really. So,
Yeah, just to give a brief background. So Anthony's a huge photographer, filmer. I mean, you're mainly a cinematographer.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I just looked through an arsenal of your photos, and it looks like you always had a photo cam with you as well, through like a big portion of your history of shooting snowboarding and skateboarding, it looks like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a professional photographer, and so, I would just shoot skating, and I didn't have the gear, so I had just a cheaper Minolta with a kit lens, and, I would just go and hack away and shoot photos of my buddies skating. And it wasn't until I got introduced to snowboarding that I actually put it down for a while, because I was so into snowboarding, and I was actually pretty decent at it, and I started competing. So there was a period I didn't shoot many photos, because I was like having fun snowboarding and competing on the weekends and trying to pursue it. I don't know where it was going, but I was having fun doing it. So I put the camera down for a while.
And then at what age would have you picked up a board? And out of curiosity, what would have your first board been? A Burton?
I was introduced to snowboarding on like a Burton back hill, and with the big plastic high backs or big plastic bindings, and I don't think it even had edges on it, but it had those fins. And that was my first introduction. I think the first winter I was in Toronto, I tried it, and we tried it. Resorts weren't allowing it, so we tried it at some hill, and I just remember eating shit and being all right.
Just eating.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and never didn't know the following winter that things were gonna, start to pick up for snowboarding. Resorts were gonna start allowing it, and we were gonna have edges and sidewalls. That was like, I didn't even know what a sidewall was, or an edge. Like I didn't ski, so I don't come from skiing, so I had no clue really. But I started working at skate shop. So I got a job at Hogtown Skate and Snow in Toronto, which was like the biggest shop in Toronto. And the owner was like totally into snowboarding. So he had all the latest Burton gear when it was just first coming out. He had those big safaris, and he had a bunch of shop rentals, and they were all Sims boards. So there was a Sims Switchblade, I think a Kidwell, and I forget, there was like 3 models. and there were rentals. So on the weekends, he would let me take them, and I would get on the bus and go to Blue Mountain. And it was the first year Blue Mountain allowed snowboarding. So that's how I kind of learned. I would just go on my own, but I just loved it so much. I was just obsessed with it. So, you know, for a few years, that's what I did, maybe even just a year. And then I saw an opportunity to work at Lake Ridge Ski Resort in Uxbridge. And so I had this opportunity to teach snowboarding. So I was like, okay, this is my way of getting access to the hill without having to buy a pass or buy tickets. And I could teach snowboarding in the day and then snowboard at night. And that's what I did. And
the loopholes.
Yeah, I just found a way to do it because I loved it so much. You know, it was an hour and a half drive from my house. But, you know, that was my job for about 2 or 3 winters.
Coaching.
Teaching.
Okay, like teaching, like just basics, like how to get up, shred.
Yeah.
Like,
there was no curriculum, so it was just like,
and this
I would
is
just freestyle it. You know?
And this is when the sidewall was in place, or was this still with like those like?
No, the sidewall was so I learned on the Sims boards, the switchblades, and then the following year I bought a Burton Mystery Air, and that was my first real board that I owned. And then I started teaching snowboarding.
And did like the whole time you were coaching or teaching, I guess, did you think that you maybe wanted to pursue that? I know that you said earlier with skateboarding, you knew that this is just a fun thing. It's not clicking that like, I'm not going to be the best. I'm not going to be like, and that was the huge vert ramp phase. I feel like. Yeah. Was it? Yeah. And street skating was just kind of starting.
Yes. Street skating was starting. There was a lot of launch ramps when I moved to Toronto, launch ramps to walls and we would go just find any kind of tranny in Toronto and try to ride it. But then vert was really big, and we had a lot of amazing skaters up in Toronto.
Who were some of your favorite skaters back then?
Well, I mean,
or guys you looked up to, and just like for time era kind of reference.
Well, I mean, those movies like Animal Chin and Public Domain were big influences on us. I can remember watching Animal Chin, in my buddy's place, like blown away by it. So, I mean, those were big influences on us. And then, but we had such a strong scene in Toronto. We had some of the best skaters there. I mean, we had Tom Boyle, Mike Fraser would be up there a lot. And, just a lot of East Coast skaters like Buster Halterman, the Godoy brothers would come through there. So it was like, the scene was hot in Toronto. So, I was exposed to it. I was living it like in Toronto with that scene. So
it was around the clock. And so then you skate in the summers, and then you find this thing snowboarding, and you click with it. You're pretty good. You're coaching. You found the ins and outs to, get a pass. You're driving an hour and a half to the hill. So, I mean, clearly you love it. That's a far commute for someone young to be like, I'm this passionate about it. Did you know you kind of wanted to take that seriously at one point?
Well, I was just having fun, man, really more than anything. Like, we had a little half pipe, and they had like this like really crude blade that they would groom the pipe with, and it was just fun, and that's why my dogs are barking up.
That's what the dogs do.
Yeah, they like to bark. It was fun. I just didn't know where it was going. I didn't really give a shit where it was going. I was just having fun. I was doing tricks that I couldn't do on my skateboard. Like, I was like, fuck, I can do a method now.
Speaking of the method, I'm going to post that photo. But so when Anthony learned how to method, he was riding a pipe. And was that at Blue Mountain, that photo?
No, that's at Lake Ridge.
Okay. And that photo that I'm going to show you guys is the first time you ever learned methods, like that day?
Yeah, it was that day.
Damn.
Yeah, it was that day.
That's a sick method to date. Like, if someone, like, posted that photo on Instagram and they're, like, shredding, like, Whistler Blackcomb side hit and someone posted that method, I'd be like, fucking right. It's like, that's sick.
Yeah, it's kind of flappy, but...
27 years ago?
Yeah, if you look close, I'm in hard boots, too.
Really?
But I did a hard boot thing for, like, for, like, half a season, because we were just using felt Sorels and...
Was Damian Sanders your hero back then?
Well, Damian was definitely an influence because like Critical Condition was like the first film we saw, and we were just like, holy fuck, like,
yeah,
it was just like
balls to the walls.
Yeah, so no, not really. I think it's just the foot pain of riding felts, and there was no boot. So I was working at a ski shop at that point. I quit Hogtown and was working at a ski shop, and they had all this mountaineering stuff. So they weren't ski boots; they were like these mountaineering boots, and and they had crampons, so the bindings were kind of like crampons. So I rode them for like a half a season. They sucked. They would release all the time. And then the Burton Freestyle boot came out, and that was it. You know, like that was a game changer. That was the boot. So as soon as that boot came out, you know, that's what everybody went to, is the Burton binding and the Burton Freestyle boot, the one with the neoprene. It's funny because I think they re-released it about 5-6 years ago.
Like the same colorway or the
same construction and kind of the same look. You know, obviously the liner was different, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, whenever you go to like a thrift store, especially anywhere that's near like a ski resort, you can always find like those old Airwalks and stuff like that are short and super floppy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that you guys said that those used to be snowboard boots. When I look at them and compare them to my boots right now, I'm like, how did that... I mean, it allows you guys to do those stale fishes and methods like you're on a skateboard, though.
Yeah.
Because the boots now are somewhat limiting when it comes to tweaking a grab. And when you see someone like Nicholas or Ika tweak something out, you're like, it's almost so impressive that someone can tweak so hard with like a snowboard boot. Where back then, you guys didn't really have a lot of ankle support.
No, but you know, we were also not going as big as people are now. And, you know, yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's true.
Things got gnarlier, so I think boots had to get stiffer, I guess. I don't know.
And then, so when do you go from, I'm assuming at one point was your direction straight to Whistler? Like the videos are coming out of Whistler, is that where you wanted to go from Blue Mountain? Or did you, like, what was your next step?
Well, it's funny. So the scene in Toronto, so now I was really wrapped up in the snowboard scene. So we had a lot of really good half-pipe riders coming out of Ontario. And you know, back then, half-pipe was a big deal. Like, not that it isn't now, but, you know, yeah, I mean, people were competing. There was a lot of local events, then the national events. And, you know, back then, everybody kind of did everything. You know, there wasn't really your free rider yet. There was, like, half-pipe and racing, and you know, we even competed in moguls. Like, it was just, everybody was just doing it, right? So, you know, half-pipe was, it had, you know, there was a lot of attention on half-pipe. You know, so I just kept competing in Ontario and tried to, you know, do well in the provincials. And then I went on to do the nationals at Lake Louise. So,
that's a big trek.
Yeah, it was a big trek, but, you know, I did 2 nationals, so I did a Lake Louise one and a Whistler one. But my first introduction to Whistler, it's kind of a funny story. So when I was working at Hogtown, the owner had this pit bull that was really mean. He used to bite people. And it had bitten a bunch of people over time. And I came into work one day, and it had bit a lot of people, like in the ankles or like the knee area or calf. And I came to work one day, and you know, I walked by the dog and I said, "Hi, Max," and she was tied up, and then she lunged at me, and she bit me on my dick. So, yeah, it was
a rough day.
It was a fucking really rough day. Anyway, I was bleeding. It was in the shop had moved to Scarborough, so I guess the news people, you know, must have had their
tabs.
They knew there would have been another pit bull attack, so they were on it. They just sent the news crew over to the shop, and you know, I was bleeding. There was people in the store. It was quite the scene, and my buddy that was working there, Eugene, called the ambulance. And luckily, the ambulance came and got me before the media got there. Anyway, they rushed me to the hospital. It turns out I had 2 puncture wounds. Nothing serious, really.
Fuck. That must have been so painful.
Yeah, it was kind of, you know, they put a catheter in me and sent me home. But, I mean, there's more to that whole story. But anyway, that was my introduction to Whistler because the boss felt so bad that he took me to Whistler. As my, you know, I'm sorry, dude, I'm going to take you to Whistler. So that photo that you saw that I posted the other day, that's like maybe 88, 89, you know?
Wow.
And that was me with my first trip to Whistler.
And you kept hearing, is it like, did you like the vibe here?
Well, it's funny because we got here and there was a big warming and then a total Arctic outflow. So the mountain was closed for like the first 3 days. So we did nothing, pretty much.
Tick. And do you like the boss at least? Like, are you guys homies? Like, you're out here and having a good time? Or is he kind of like the father figure and you're like, no, this is kind of boring?
He was kind of a dick. He it sucked here, so he just like took off on us. We didn't know where he went, so he had just taken off and gone to Baker. So
And bailed on you guys from
bailed on
Whistler.
us.
What? Harsh.
Didn't even ask
Here's
us
your
if we
free
wanted
trip to
go.
Whistler.
Yeah, exactly. So it was funny. So we did end up getting like one good POW day, and I could barely ride POW. All I did was cartwheel down the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
It was freezing cold. Like
That doesn't even matter about the gear. My first time in Whistler, I could not ride POW either. It's just like that's a whole other thing when you come from the East Coast.
Yeah. Anyway, that everything works fine now. It was a long time ago. But it's crazy how that happened. Like that was my first introduction to Whistler. I had no idea. Like I'm a kid from Florida. I didn't know where British Columbia was. Like,
out of curiosity, what was it like? Was it like when I see those older photos of guys like riding that like nostalgic hand dug kind of half pipe, and it's a contest, and the guy's announcing, and there's just like Skittle colors everywhere, and people are only riding Burton and Sims, and people like are dressed all crazy. Was that the vibe? Is that what you were seeing too? Is that like the same era? Just so I'm getting it right, like
yeah.
Wow.
Lots of day glow and a lot of headbands and.
So wow, that's insane. When I see those like early photos of like Slasnik and stuff like that, like doing those, wearing those old like crazy Billabong pants that are all baggy and doing like these indie nose bones that are like how you should do them.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
What was your go-to contest run back then? If you were going to the half pipe, would it be like?
Well, like the thing is, I didn't have any big moves, but I was consistent.
That helps in the contest.
Yeah,
world.
exactly. So I was just like
Strategy,
and I knew how to do a method, right?
Yeah.
Like most people didn't. It was hard to do. So I had a basic run. Method to front side, backside. Like not a backside indie, but an indie. Method to fakie or front side air to fakie to half cab. It's just
So
something
sick.
super mellow. But I got good at it because I'd worked at a resort. I would just lap out. I had a chairlift take me up. So I had this go-to run I had. And I would do well with that run. People were falling most runs,
So did you ever get sponsored from this, like the whole snowboard thing?
I did. It's funny because my girlfriend at the time was working at West Beach, this little shop in the beaches in Toronto. And I think it was the first West Beach store maybe. And they started giving me clothes, and that was my first sponsor was West Beach.
That's actually really interesting because I actually signed with West Beach probably 10 years ago after you rode for them and you were the team manager for a while too, right?
Yeah, I was their team manager for a while.
When it was actually like really sick.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people had quit. Devin had quit when I became team manager. Sluggo had quit. But KY was still on the team. And then I put a few other people on the team. I don't even remember. Oh, Browner was on the team. Like Rick Wunderlich was on the team.
John Cartwright rode for them too, right?
Yeah, but I was gone.
Oh, you were gone.
Yeah, I was gone. When Morrow Snowboards bought them, and when Morrow,
that was the re-up.
Yeah, and then I was gone.
Okay, so then you got on West Beach before you even moved to Whistler.
Yeah.
So you're hiking these, and are these hand dug half pipes, or did you guys actually have a machine cutting them out?
Well, they were. We had this like
half
blade.
and half.
Like it was just super tight tranny. It would only cut one side good, and so it was kind of like hand dug.
So you would basically look down and be like, "That's the best place to take off right there," because it wasn't just like the half pipes now are just like absolutely perfect. They're also a sheet of ice now.
Yeah, they're a lot harder to ride now. I'll tell you that. I'm
They're
terrified.
like 25 feet high now.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's totally different. But it was fun back then, like there was less consequence for sure. So now you can really get yourself into some trouble in those big pipes. I don't even go near them.
Oh, dude, seriously, it's some big trouble. I mean, like people literally are passing away from them and getting.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, and
Big
they're
and icy.
solid ice.
Yeah.
So then you move out to Whistler. You're on West Beach.
Well, so another crazy story. Like it's just weird how stuff. So the dog bites me. I go to Whistler. I come home. I don't know. I don't remember coming home going, I gotta get back there. It's just weird. Like I just came home and carried on with life, right? But there was a 12-year-old I would teach snowboarding at Lake Ridge, and his dad asked me if I wanted to chaperone his kid out to the Camp of Champions for the summer. And, I was like, well, of course, So that was like the first summer that I actually got to come out to Whistler and ride the glacier. And by that time, me and Kevin Young had become really good friends, and we were competing together in Ontario. He had just made the move out to Whistler and was going for it, to be a pro snowboarder. So I had Kevin already here as my kind of friend, So when I got this opportunity to chaperone this kid, that was like, okay, I'm on a plane and on my way to Camp of Champions.
His dad copped your bill, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and he put us in for a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I came out here that summer, I got to meet Kevin. Well, I knew Kevin, but I got to meet all Kevin's friends, right? So I got to meet Johnson, Kearns, Maury.
The dudes.
Yeah, Chris Nichols, Mark Castengay. There was that whole crew that was living in Whistler, and they were all kind of, they were all pro snowboarders, right? I had competed against some of them in the nationals, but, I don't remember. I remember competing against Sheen, I think, but I don't remember competing. Sheen won the event, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, Sheen won. Yeah. So that was my real introduction to Whistler. So I came and got to meet everybody, like Johnson. I'm trying to think. There was just so many people.
And did you click, you move here, you're you got to be a young frother or whatever, for sure. Do you click with these? Are you just down with this crew? Do they click with you? You guys jive? Or is there you're yeah, these guys are all right? Because for me, when I first moved here, it wasn't an easy click with all the pros and the AMs. I was I was pretty shy and stuff. Did you feel you clicked with that crew immediately and you're these are my boys, and KY kind of took you under his wing?
Yeah, it seemed like we did. Some guys more than others. His dad, it's funny because his dad also gave us a bunch of money to come with. I didn't realize how wealthy. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize how much money this kid's dad had, because he just bought us first class tickets and put us in for a month. I had no idea. And then he gave us a gang, just a bunch of cash to come out with. So, yeah, it was party time. I made friends really quickly. So, yeah.
It was party time.
It was party time. I would, I just take the kid to the skate shop. And I shouldn't say kid, it was Wes. His name was Wes. He's a great kid, and he's still a great kid. He's still a great guy. He lives in Toronto, works in the skate industry. But yeah, we had a lot of money, and we were staying in a nice place, and I would take him to the skate shop, buy him whatever he wanted, and then he'd hang out with Browner and Swirl, and I'd leave them in the condo, and I'd just go party with everybody.
Go to Garfinkel's and Buffalo Bills.
No, it wasn't Garfinkel's, it was Tommy's back then.
Is that was where you would go?
Yeah, Garf's, nah, not so much.
No way.
No, Garf's was the skier bar.
No way. Yeah. Tommy's was the ish.
Tommy's was the spot, man. Yeah.
So who are you rolling to Tommy's with?
Oh, pretty much everybody I just mentioned.
Nice. Yeah. So then you make the move? Do you go back to Toronto in the summer?
I go back to Toronto because I had a girlfriend, and I liked my job at Lake Ridge. I just didn't know how I would move to Whistler. But so then the following year he sent us again, and this time we went to 2 weeks at Camp of Champions, and then 1 week at Kelly's camp, Craig Kelly's camp. So by the time I knew everybody, I don't think he gave us as much cash, but he still gave us a bunch of money.
He got stingier over the years.
I don't know. I don't really remember. But, again, I came out here and had an amazing summer, got to know everybody even more, and then went home. And it wasn't till that following year that I decided... It's your phone.
I just muted it.
Yeah, it wasn't
until the following year.
Yeah, so again, I did another year, another winter at Lake Ridge, and competed. And actually, I had a really good season competing. I won an event, probably the first event I won. It was a big event to win. So I was like, okay, I'm actually half decent at this, and I'm going to go to the Nationals in Whistler. And I drove instead of flying. Without Wes now, Wes
solo cross Canada.
I went with this kid Troy, and he was a really good in half pipe too. So we jumped in the truck, and the reason why I wanted to drive is I wanted to bring my dog. I had a dog, so we just jumped in my Wagoneer and drove across the country.
How was the drive? Smooth sailing?
Yeah, from what I remember, it was pretty boring. Yeah. Anyway, that's the only time I've ever driven across the country. But we got out to Whistler, and it was the Canadian Nationals and the West Beach Classic. So there was the amateur event, and then there was the pro event. So I entered the amateur event, and because I rode for West Beach, I was allowed to enter the pro event. So I did both events. Didn't do very good in either of them, but
Is this a big air?
no, half pipe.
Okay.
No, there was no big air yet.
And was because the event, whenever I think of West Beach Classic, I think of it like right beside the GLC at the base of, like,
Yeah, I
was
think
it
that
there or was it up in the
No, it was
mountain?
up in the mountain. I believe
Okay.
it was on Whistler. Yeah, I feel like Todd Richards might have won, or I don't remember. Anyway, I did both the amateur and pro, and I didn't do that well. But I remember beating some, like, I think I beat Palmer because he fell. Like, again, I just did this consistent run, didn't fall.
Beat Sean Palmer.
Yeah, I mean,
Hell
he
yeah.
crashed. But there was big names. Terrier was there. Palmer was there. Like,
Whoa, like the dudes.
yeah, back then, man, when there was a half pipe event, all the big dudes would show up. Yeah.
And then you guys would go to Tommy's.
Yeah, we would go to Tommy's, I think. I don't really know Sean, so Palmer. I never got to know him in all the years, but yeah, I mean, he would show up and compete.
And were you down? Like, were those your two? Because I mean, those are the guys always winning back then. Sean and Terrier. Were those your two guys, or who did you look up to at this point in your career? Who were your Slasnik?
Yeah, I mean, all those guys, Palmer was one of my favorites. How do you not like Slasnik? I didn't know those guys though. Terrier I got to know early on because he hung out in Whistler a lot, and he was young and he was friends with Mark and Kevin. So I actually got to know Terrier when he was probably 17. So
Like a child.
yeah, and he was dating Nicole Engelrath. Yeah, and they came out, and it's funny because they really liked my dog, so they would always kind of come and hang. I mean, I had no idea where Terrier was going to take it, but he was always super friendly, and that's how I got to know him.
Wow.
But I don't really know Sean to this day, or I didn't know Slasnik. I didn't know Chris Roach. There's a lot of guys I didn't know.
Well, because you were stuck you were doing the Whistler bubble thing. You were doing it here.
Yeah,
You had your crew here, your homies. Yeah, I mean, dudes are flying out on first class jets, come out here and hang out with their son, drop them off with Browner, and you go party for the night. It sounds like you just linked up with the perfect life.
Yeah, things were good.
You're just going.
And yeah, you just you look at where all those guys went, where it all went. You just don't know that's going to happen when you're in it, and you're just like, yeah, you don't know what the heck.
You're just going with the flow.
You're going with the flow, exactly. So, so what happened was my plan was to drive home, and my girlfriend flew out here, and I convinced her to stay.
Solid move.
Yeah, I convinced her to stay, but we were having a lot of problems, and she kind of broke up with me while she was here, and then just started dating some other dude immediately. So,
In Whistler.
Yeah, in
and she
Whistler.
didn't even bounce out of the town that you brought her to.
So I was
That is
pretty-
a Whistler classic move.
Yeah, like they say, you didn't lose your girlfriend back then. You would just lose your turn. Right?
That's still an ongoing quote.
Maybe is that okay to say now?
Yeah, dude.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was the guy to girl ratio there was crazy. Like it was 15 dudes to every one girl. Like there was just no girls in Whistler back then. They were just they
Just shred dudes.
shred dudes. People move there to shred. And
And there'd be the one hot girl that everybody liked.
exactly. It was slim pickings back then. Anyway, she left me for some other dude, and I was pretty heartbroken. Got into a bunch of drama, a couple fist fights over the whole thing. But in the end, she packed her bags and moved back to Toronto. And I think she just expected me to move back. And I was just like, no, I'm not moving back. I'm going to stay. So I just stayed.
They're like, nah, I'm friends with Terrier. I'm living in Whistler.
Yeah.
I'm on West Beach.
Yeah. I mean, I was still just scraping by. All the money that the guy gave me in the summer was gone. I was scraping by, man. I had no money really. So
Nobody.
I was living in Gondola Village, so I was like, oh, they're hiring at the Husky,
That's close.
And it was close. I was like, I've never pumped gas before. It was full serve back then. And I was like, fuck, I'll go down there. And I got a job down there pumping gas. You know, it's my first job, just to get by, you know, and
keep the flow. You're just keeping the flow going, dude.
exactly. So I just did that first. You know, I had a vehicle, I had a dog, you know, I had all the gear I needed. Problem was the passes were expensive, so I tried to get a job teaching on Whistler Blackcomb or on Whistler. And it's funny because I had all these great credentials, and I had, you know, by that time I had taken my level 1, and I was like, I'm going to get a job, no problem. And I went in for an interview with one of the Perry brothers, and I didn't get the job. I was fucking crushed.
You're like, what the
I was
shit?
like, what the fuck? Anyway, I didn't get the job. I was really confused. So I ended up moving in with Kevin Young in his little 1-bedroom. We actually split the room in half, like with a big, large bunk bed, I guess, you know, because it was a 1-bedroom. He was traveling by that point a lot, so I was there. You know, I usually had the place to myself, but his landlord owned an installation company, and then I just started working for his landlord.
You're like, peace out, Husky.
Yeah.
On to bigger and better things.
Yeah, it was the novelty had worn off.
Of pumping gas. You're like, it's close, but this sucks.
Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like, my dad would always be like, you gotta go to school. You're gonna end up pumping gas the rest of your life.
That's fucking right.
I thought I'd try.
Pumping gas and whistling.
So I started working construction, and I fucking hated it. It sucked, man, because, you know, I would be working and be cold and damp. And, you know, we were building stuff like Marketplace and Intrawest.
You started building Marketplace?
Yeah, so I was working on that. That was one of the first sites I worked on was Marketplace, you know, so there was no Marketplace.
And then once it's fall here and it starts raining and sleeting and everyone's going up the mountain and you're working on Marketplace, it's hard on the soul.
It's really hard on the soul, especially when you're like, I was just obsessed with snowboarding. I just wanted to be on the hill. There was nothing I didn't like about it. Like, I liked being on the chairlift. I liked getting off the chairlift and like buckling up. Like, I liked it all, you know?
Package deal.
Yeah, dude. So I was just like dying having to work construction on a pow day. Like,
and then you see your roommate KY just going up there, probably doing lap and lap, and he's sponsored.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
going
I had
on trips,
crazy
like,
FOMO.
fuck, yeah.
Fuck, I want to be up there. So I reapplied at Blackcomb and ended up getting the job teaching. So then I started teaching at Blackcomb, I think the following year or something. So there was a year of me really having trouble getting on the hill.
And they were separate mountains back then, weren't they?
Yeah, they were separate. Yeah.
So it wasn't the same. So you got it at the opposing place.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Whistler, I'm out.
Yeah.
Going to Blackcomb.
Yeah. To this day, I hate that guy because there was no reason for him not to hire me. Like, I don't know.
Just wasn't down with your vibe.
I guess so, because they actually didn't. I had to go in for an
I wonder if he was a skier.
Oh, he for sure was a skier.
Yeah, so that's the reason.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, 27 years ago, you have a skier or a snowboarder coming in for a job interview, and you're like, I don't want any more of these on the hill.
Yeah, I had long hair. You know, I think I had a little bit of a cocky attitude. I don't know. I don't. He didn't like me.
Marijuana.
He obviously didn't like me because I definitely had I'd been teaching for 3 years before even anybody was teaching snowboarding.
Yeah, there wasn't like an array of people you could pick from.
No.
Like being a coach back then, snowboarding was a niche.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm having trouble putting it all on a timeline, but yeah, it's so. So I was living in Whistler. I was a Whistler local.
And at what point did you go, I don't want to be a pro? Or what like stopped that and made you pick back up the camera?
Well, that's interesting you ask because I knew right away, like I was already 20, 22, 23. I knew I wasn't going to be a pro snowboarder. I mean, guys were so good and just from competing in that last nationals and, seeing where it was all going, I was like, I was just like, that's not, I don't have those skills.
Yeah, you see that cover of Igmar Backman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that still hadn't happened yet, but yeah, it was getting super gnarly. Like, and I was like fine with it. I just wanted to snowboard. I didn't want to be a pro. Like I didn't move there really to be a pro. I just moved there to see what was going to happen.
Going with the flow.
Totally going with the flow. Like, and I've always kind of lived that way. So, it wasn't till a little later that things really started picking up for KY and West Beach, and there was an opportunity to be the team manager. So I got the job. And, I started working for Chip Wilson, like traveling with Chip. My responsibility was to be down there like once or twice a week to sit through design meetings. So I was like, now I was living it, but, as a team manager, traveling with the team, going to sales meetings, going to trade shows, and I had finally found a job in the industry. And I think that's where I was like, okay, if I want to do this, I got to find a way to get into the industry, somehow, because I love this so much that this is what I want to do. I don't care what I'm doing, but as long as I'm in the industry and I'm not on that job site,
Yeah, as long as I'm not working on Marketplace in the sleet.
Yeah, well, I mean, not that construction's a bad thing. I just had a really, really hard trade to be in. It was dirty and it was not well respected. It was insulation, it was bottom of the barrel work. Sorry, anybody that does insulation. It's not an easy job. It's itchy. It's really bad for you. Yeah, anyway, I was glad.
It wasn't for you.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So, so I was just like, now I found an in. So I wasn't making much money, but I was living my lifestyle that I was trying to shape, I guess. I don't know. I was just
That's the thing. You got to go through all those experiences to know you don't like them. So, I mean, you pump the gas. You're like, fuck this. This isn't me. And then you do the insulation. You're like, this is itchy and it's not me. What do I have to do in order to not do those things again? And you're like, if it means me being a team manager, I'm way more happy to do that and go to trade shows than be doing insulation.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I was probably making less money, but I was happy. And they knew I'd taken photos in the past, because I had a lot of photos I had taken over the years in Toronto and a little bit of snowboarding stuff. But, I was like, Daniel was the staff photographer, but I was like saying, Chip, why don't you guys get me a body and a lens and I'll start taking photos as well. And they did. They ended up buying me a Canon A2
and Chip Wilson is, out of curiosity, he does something else now, doesn't he?
Well, he started Lululemon. And
yeah, that's how I know the name.
Yeah, so Chip is like...
So he did well.
Oh, he did really well. Yeah. He got
shout out to Chip.
He got the last laugh.
But at least he bought you a camera to shoot some photos.
He bought me a camera, so... he bought me an A2 and 7200. So I finally got somewhat professional gear. I had a professional lens, and I had shot a bunch of photos. See, this is where the timeline kind of gets crazy. Is like I had shot some photos. I was team managing and I was shooting photos, but I still had that shitty gear that I had been shooting skateboarding in Toronto with. And I'd gone on a few shoots. I'd gone on a shoot with Dano and Mike Hager and Hernan and all the original kind of whiskey dudes, A Trip to Big White, the legendary trip that's in the first movie where the Boozy the Clown costume came out, the clown suit came out. So I was on that trip as like a backup photographer. And that's kind of where it all started for me shooting again. But again, I still had shitty gear. And I remember showing somebody my photos and they're like, oh, your lenses suck. So I was like,
probably just covered in beer.
No, that was later. The good stuff got covered in beer a bunch of times. But anyway, I just had shitty gear, and so Chip bought me that stuff, and I started shooting photos again and being a team manager. So I was, I was kind of back in the mix, and then the video thing was starting to pick up. You had Whiskey One. That was made with a bunch of just random cameras, high 8 cameras and, whatever they could shoot on. So a few of the early Whiskey One things, I shot photos and I shot some high 8 and I kind of was just in the mix, it wasn't...
You're just doing what you could do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you're going with the flow again.
Again, like, a lot of times it wasn't my camera. Like I think at the opening of Whiskey One when Johnson's breaking the bottle on his head,
epic.
He just showed up in White Gold where we lived and he's like handed me a camera and said, shoot this, so he's trying to break that bottle on his head and I'm just rolling on it and you can hear me laughing because I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And that's I think how it opens, right? I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah,
but that's me laughing.
I haven't seen it.
But that's not my camera, people would just
hand me this camera, I'm gonna break this bottle over my head. Yeah. You're like,
I was like, sure, dude.
Do you know that crew really well at this point? Like, are you homies with that?
Yeah, I'm good friends with Johnson at this point. Johnson's still a good friend. I mean, he was really good to me. you know, those guys helped me get my start, you know, shooting whiskey. You know, and then Jamie Mossberg was a big part too. Jamie was making movies, and he was coming up to Whistler, and they basically
Didn't he make like a Zero movie? He
made a Birdhouse movie that was really
Oh
big.
yeah, what was it called again?
The End.
The End. Yeah.
That was a huge film for him. But he was already kind of not shooting snowboarding videos. He kind of, it's weird. He did a few of them and then kind of went off and did that movie, and then after that he did a surf movie. So I don't know what happened, why he didn't keep making snowboard movies, but. I'm still friends with Jamie to this day, like
AKA Mouse.
Mouse, yeah. So those guys are the ones that were like handing me cameras and needing guys. You know, I had access to all these dudes, so you know it made sense for them to leave me a camera and try to shoot some stuff when I could. So I was shooting some video, some high 8, and shooting stills, and just again finding a way to just claw my way into the industry. You know, and live my lifestyle. I wanted to snowboard pretty much. I wanted to be on the mountain, and that's all I like. I guess that's all I was focused on. And I look back, I don't remember feeling that way, but I guess that's why all this stuff happens, because I really just wanted to be on the mountain. I want to be outside.
Yeah, and you probably wanted to be surrounded by that group of people.
Yeah, they were my friends.
I mean, at that age, I don't think we even saw the whiskey movie when I was that young, but we saw Jackass and CKY, and that's what our crew was just doing. We were just drinking and jumping off stuff and jumping into trees, and we would set a wood kicker. We would build like a wood ramp, and me and my friends would ride as fast as we could with our BMXs into a pine tree.
Yeah,
I don't even know. And then like when you see whiskey and all the Wildcats movies, I was like, whoa! I think that. When a group of guys get together and they drink for the first time, they just do that shit.
Yeah, it was funny, man.
You give them a video camera too, it just gets worse.
Maybe that's what's lacking in these action sports videos. It's funny shit. I don't know.
Personality.
Yeah, but you know, so because I had experience, because we didn't talk about it, but I had taken some photography courses in Toronto at George Brown University, and so I had learned how to use a light meter and shoot photos and print and stuff like that. I didn't get a degree or anything. I took just a couple courses, a couple semesters. So I had a background in understanding how to expose film. So, because back then there was no chimping, there was no looking at your photo. You had to know how to expose to get an image on film. So I knew how to do that. Even though I had a shitty camera, I did know how to do that, and I had a light meter. And then so Chip bought me this professional gear, but I still had a lot to learn. And the photographers that were coming up were like Dano, and Ken Achenbach was a photographer at the time, and you know there was photographers. You know, I'm trying to think who else. Mark Gallup. You know, those guys were already kind of established. You know, and so I was like trying to compete with those dudes, and it was kind of hard because they were really established at their ins into magazines and stuff. So I was really just shooting photos for West Beach, and you know I was shooting some stuff, but never really had done any submissions to Transworld. It's kind of hard to get in. Anyway, it wasn't till Johnson and Kearns decided after Whiskey, they decided to make a normal snowboard film. And that was 2020. I don't know if you remember that film. Not many people saw it, but that was...
I still haven't seen it, but I've heard of the film. It's on my to-do list as of now.
Yeah, so 2020 was the film that those guys were like, okay, you know, maybe we should stop smashing balls over our heads. I don't know. They were just like, we're going to make a legit snowboard film. So that was the year that they handed me a Bolex and said, okay, you're our filmer now. So...
Is it because they probably almost died countless times and they were like, we need to calm down? Or is it because they think it would sell more?
I think they thought it would sell more. You know...
Smart guys. They were. Like, as much as they were like a chaotic mess, they also were like kind of genius.
Yeah, they were smart. And, you know, so Jamie Mossberg had produced Whiskey One, and I think they were like, oh, fuck, you made all the money on it. We didn't make any money on it. We're going to do this ourselves, you know? Because... you could make a lot of money making DVDs back then and VHS tapes. That's the only place people got to see stuff. So people were selling huge numbers of DVDs and I don't even think DVDs yet, but
the Kearns podcast, the effing rad one, he like kind of touches base on how many copies they sold of TrueLife.
Yeah, dude.
And you're like, whoa, there's big money in
There was
that
big
shit.
money. Yeah, there was big money. So those guys are like, trying to find a way to do it themselves without, having Mouse do it. And you got to remember, there was no Final Cut. Mouse had edited whiskey on a rented editing mixing board with dials and shit. So
I don't even understand how to do it. I don't think I've even seen one of those.
Yeah,
before.
so it was a lot more complicated to produce these things, So Mouse knew how to do it. Mouse produced the first whiskey, and he probably made more of the money off it than those guys did, and they were bitter. So they did 2020, and that's when I got hired to work for those guys. And we shot a whole winter, and I shot with a Bolex and one lens. What was it? It was a 10 mil. I think.
And 2020 would have been the same crew that's in all the whiskey movies.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Halapoff, Devin, and that's when that year was the year I got to know Devin the best. I mean, he was really young, and he was the dude. They were like, this kid's amazing, and look how young he is, So I forget, it was like, but it was Devin, Halapoff, Ian Reuter was a pro snowboarder at the time, and he's a photographer now. Nathan Yant was in that film. He's a drone pilot now.
Wow.
I'm trying to think who else was in that film, but and then the usual suspects from Whistler, probably.
Wet and Wes.
Yeah, I don't know about Wes. I never really shot with Wes, but yeah, just I probably have one of those somewhere. Hold on a second.
Let's do it. Let's go through your collection here.
What do I got here?
We are in Anthony's lab, and this place is filled with nostalgic stuff. Stand and Deliver posters. Photos of him skating. Trevor Andrews skate decks. Forum. TrueLife
I
posters.
don't know if I have
We gotta
it.
steal
It would
some
be
of
on
this shit from
VHS,
this
so
guy.
I don't have it. It's got to be somewhere.
We'll find it one day.
Anyway, yeah. So 2020 was the movie they tried to make, and
So you were the principal filmer on that, and
Yeah.
so was that your first, you're the filmer, Anthony?
yeah,
That's a lot of pressure your first time.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And you're filming the whole thing on, not 16, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was 16. By that time, it was 16. So we moved from high 8, and we'd moved into 16 millimeter.
Which is, whenever I see anyone bring that out, I'm like, that looks like a stressful piece of machinery to work with, especially if it's not like, hey, did you get my Cab 5? You're like, let me review this shit. You're like, I hope so.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I don't. You know what? For some reason, it was. I don't remember it being that stressful. Yeah, it was hard to see out of those things. It's funny because I just lent somebody my Bolex. They want to shoot some film. And he's like, how did you even see out of the thing? It was hard. It's like shooting silhouettes all the time. Like you can barely see out of those things. And things. I guess I don't remember missing shots back then, but maybe things just didn't. It didn't matter as much if you missed stuff. I don't know. I just don't remember. Maybe I did miss anything. I don't know. But
the mix of you going to Tommy's and now your friends being in the whiskey videos, it's just a blurry haze.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but I would just do it, and I was actually kind of good at it, I guess, because I was starting to get hired. I did have a kind of a falling out with those guys because they wanted me to go to Chile in the summer. To shoot, and I didn't want to go.
Yeah, you wanted to skate, hang out with Whistler.
Yeah,
girls.
I had a girlfriend, I had my dogs. I was like,
you had your program.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to go to Chile. I was like, you guys go. Turns out it was like the fucking biggest nightmare of a trip. They almost all got arrested. Yeah, it was chaos. Anyway, I didn't go, so they kind of fired me. Fired me. Yeah, you're fired. Anyway, so. And at that time, that's when Kevin signed with Shorties. So, there's my dogs again.
No, whatever, dude. Dogs are real. We got dogs outside, everybody.
Yeah, so, again, this is when I'm having trouble with timeline. So, I think it was after 2020 that Kevin had signed with Shorties, and Devin had signed with Shorties, and Brownridge signed with Shorties, and Tony, the guy who owned it, I think that was his name. He sent me out a Super 8 camera, and I shot Young Brown Walsh.
Wow, I've seen that movie a bunch of times. Amazing.
Yeah, so again, that movie people really liked. So there was another title I had shot, and I was slowly kind of
You're
making a
making
name
a
for
name for
myself, I guess, and still not making much money doing it. But, I lived in Whistler. I found ways to get by, I just made it work. So I was still, again, it was very seasonal, so I was just getting these opportunities to shoot in the winter. And still, I think I was still the team manager, so I was shooting photos, and I was just doing whatever I could to survive. And it wasn't, now I'm starting to have trouble with timelines. So I did that, and then I think I worked on Whiskey 3, and then I worked on, for Jamie, I worked on 1999, and The Golden Circle, and
Stand and Deliver.
Well, no, so what happened is, so in 1999, probably in 98, I would think, in and around there, I had an opportunity to get involved in the Circle skate and snowboard shop. So again, I was trying to find ways to stay in the industry. So Mark and Kevin, Mark Morissette and Kevin Young, decided to open the Circle, and I wanted in. I was like, I want to be an owner too. I was like, but I didn't have much money, so I took out a loan of not much money, and I got involved. So I was a small percentage owner of the shop, but what I did is I gave my time. So I helped build the shop, so me and Mike Hager and, whoever it took to get the shops going, we built all the cabinets and,
There's the labor.
Yeah, we did all the work to get it going. I mean, that sign that's still up there to this day, I put up with Mike. We climbed ladders and we put the Circle sign
No
up.
way.
Yeah, drilled the holes, everything. So I ordered that sign.
That's amazing.
So, and then I got involved in that. So the first winter at the Circle, so now I had, and by that time I had, Morrow had bought West Beach, and I wasn't the team manager anymore.
So you're looking for other ways to...
Exactly. So Morrow...
You just got fired.
It was really cool. It's a kind of a cool story because I still owe Chris Owen to this day. So Morrow bought West Beach. They're taking all operations down to Washington State. I lose my job, but they let me keep the camera gear. And Chris Owen is the person that let me keep the camera gear. And I'll never forget him for that because I thought I was going to lose my gear. Right.
Well, that's like your livelihood. That's like
your
your tools.
Exactly. It was just another tool, and they were, back then, $1,500 for a lens is that was a lot of money, man.
Oh, still.
Yeah, it still is.
That's like $4,000 nowadays. Or
$3,000. It was a lot of money. So there was no way I was going to ever buy that stuff again. So I started working at the Circle. So in 1999, the year we made that film, I did both. So I was working in the shop and shooting, and it was difficult to do, but I just did it. I would shoot all day, and then I'd go into the shop at night and work till 9, and then
grinding.
I was just grinding. I was so excited. I always wanted a skateboard shop, so now I had this shop. And
at this phase, I mean, we all go through our Whistler party phase. Are you kind of on the focus train right now?
No.
You're working your ass off, or are you dealing with all this bullshit hangover too?
No, man. It started escalating. Yeah.
Because I remember my early days in Whistler. That's what it felt like every day. I'd be working with Russell Dalby, laying bricks, and half the time dying on the ground while I have to do a cut or something like that. So hungover.
No,
not my favorite times.
No, it was. That's the thing. So there was lots of great things happening, but there was probably a little too much partying going on too. It was things were really looking good, but at the same time things were kind of starting to blow up in my face. It was it was just a weird time. So in 99 when I did the movie with Mouse, by that time I had moved on from whiskey and I thought that the shop was what I needed to be doing. So the following year I took a break from filming, and by that time Shorty's was done, Kevin was on the Lannis, there wasn't much marketing money. I don't think Kevin wasn't really filming that much. So I just spent the winter working at the Circle, and that's when things went sideways for me. I went into a really dark, fell down this dark path because me and Maury weren't getting along, and he wanted me out, and I was losing the shop, and I wasn't shooting so much. So,
and those are your things. Those are the things that are keeping you on a path.
Exactly.
You lose the shop, you lose the camera gig. It's you lose your focus.
Yeah, so everything seemed like I lost my girlfriend, my dog died, like all this shit was happening all at once, and I just wasn't mature enough to deal with my emotions, you know, so I started self-medicating. And, you know, I spiraled downhill really quickly, and things got really dark, and I was really close to moving back to Ontario. And anyway, I finally got my shit together, and that's when Sean Kearns had just started working for Mack Dawgs.
What was like the number one thing that like got you out of that dark place? Like, was it I want to go snowboarding with my friends again, or like?
It was actually Kevin, my ex-girlfriend, and my mom.
Nice.
You know, they. But I mean, it looked like I was going to move back to Ontario. I mean, I was just like, yeah, there's nothing here for me anymore. You know, things just went sideways quickly, and you know. But at the same time, now I look back, and that was a really important thing to happen for me, because
like a big learning.
Exactly, and it was a big growing experience for me anyway. So, you know, I was like, yeah, I had almost lost everything, and yeah, I was in a dark place, and I felt like I had finally dug myself out of the deep end, you know, just spiritually, maybe, you know, mentally, I don't know. It's not like I had anything going, but Mack Dawgs had just started to work on TrueLife and Stand and Deliver, and things were really going well for Mike, and he needed dudes. So, you know, after I'd got myself cleaned up and gotten some help, Kearns needed a cinematographer. They needed guys. They needed help. So I knew how to shoot. So I think they threw me on a plane and sent me to Japan.
And that was like, I'm done with this bullshit. I'm back. Like,
I still wasn't really sure. And I had bought a sled, so I owned a sled. So I had a snowmobile. I owned my Bolex at this point.
So peaks and valleys in this whole filming shit. Like you're losing jobs, and then you get to keep the camera, luckily, and then I mean, that's like, that sounded like a tough time. I'm glad that like you just found that this next thing to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, again, going with flow, and you know, I had owned my Bolex. I had my A2 with my 7200. I'm trying to remember as we do this. So yeah, so when I finally crawled out of the hole I was in, they needed dudes, and I had a light meter and a Bolex. I had just their kind of kit, their stock lens that comes with it. It's a zoom. Anyway, they didn't hire me. They just needed me, so they sent me over to Japan to shoot an event, the Nissan X Trail, for Mack Dawgs. So I went over there and came back. They got the film back, and Mike liked what he saw, and Mike's like, let's just hire him. So boom, I was a full-time Mack Dawgs filmer, just like that.
Damn.
And I had sobered up. I stopped drinking, and to this
like
day,
cold turkey over it.
Well, I wouldn't say
whatever.
cold turkey,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just didn't drink anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was completely no drinking, and you know, I started this job with Mike McIntyre, and I ended up shooting the whole season, and you know, when we were done, we had finished TrueLife and Stand and Deliver. So it was like a real turning point in my life.
Yeah, two of them, I would say. Well, TrueLife, I would say, is one of the strongest snowboard movies ever made. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Like, it's like a pillar in snowboarding.
Yeah,
like, that movie, it was to be a part of. Like, I mean, when those were done, Stand and Deliver, TrueLife, that comes out, your name's on that. Did you know at the time how big those were? Or are you just like, oh, another snowboard video put out? Or did you feel like, whoa, I'm a part of one of the most special videos ever? Like the end or whatever.
No, I had no idea. You know, I was just going from back and forth to TrueLife to Stand and Deliver. I was like, it was crazy because Mike was making so much money. Like, that was probably the first year he decided to do 2 films, right? So he had just gotten involved in Forum, and he decided to do 2 films. So, you know, it was crazy because he signed me to work for him. I don't even think I signed a contract, but he literally paid me 12 months a year. So I had the summers off, you know? So I just walked myself into like the dream job. Like, and the pay was pretty good, and the dollar was crazy. Like, at that time, it was like $1.55.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was getting these checks in US, and I was like,
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it again. And I was like, fuck. I'm going to stay sober because this is working, you know? So it was a huge part of me, like my sobriety. I was like, fuck, man. It's like, why would I drink again? Like, this is amazing. Like, this is what
I'm getting paid what I love to do. And I'm like you said at the whole podcast, like, I want to stay in this industry. I want to go snowboarding with my friends. And if being sober can keep me there, like,
yeah.
fuck yeah.
So I had all the reasons to just stay sober, and, you know, and I did. And, you know, we didn't really touch on, like, you know, the experiences of going out to Rutherford for the first time and going out to Face for the first time, places like that in like 96, 90, 94, 95 for Mouse, like we were renting. That was another big epiphany for me too. I was like, holy fuck, it's so sick out here. I was like
being out in the mountains with your friends, snowmobiling.
Like, this is what I want to fucking be. This is where I want to be, you know? So, you know, so then Mike hired me. So I owned my own snowmobile at that time. And so I just got thrown right back into it. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this full time. Like,
and what was sledding like back then? Like, give me a brief breakdown of snowmobiling back then, because you guys were basically the pioneers, and snowmobiling with camera gear.
Well, the camera gear wasn't. Yeah,
you didn't have camera bags back then and stuff. Did you just throw in a knapsack and wrap it in a jacket? And
you would sometimes throw them in towels, and you know, we'd always get real creative with foam, and it's funny because we would be like, oh, check out Pascal's bag. It's got the good foam. You know, we would always just find ways to you know, make our backpacks and our batteries. We'd build our own batteries and shit. Like, yeah, it was pretty different than it is today. Anyway, yeah, it wasn't even that it was that much more dangerous. It was just like you weren't getting up the S-chute. Like,
you weren't getting
unless it was like spring, you know, like, yeah, it was, you know, the gaunt. I mean, I'm still terrified of those things just because I had to do it on a 136 inch track, you know, a 670.
What year would have your first sled been?
96.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but we were sledding before that. So anyway, so now I had found a job that I was like, I'm doing this, man. I'm getting paid year round to be a cinematographer. You know, I was like, cool. And then I started traveling everywhere, and, you know, it was really cool because Burton was one of his biggest sponsors, and Burton was very strict about having a Dogger filmer on everything. So I was like on all the Burton trips. So, you know, I traveled with the Burton team for, you know, the 3 years I worked with Mike.
And who would be on like those trips? Trevor,
Kier, Sean was on a few of them. Terrier was on a bunch of them. Trying to think who else. Yeah, I mean, later on, like Ramon and Gigi had been signed, so, you know, so that was a little bit later. Yeah, I'm trying to think. You know, I didn't work with Nicholas very much, but really, I was with Trevor a lot. You know, and there I was again, taking care of another young kid, like I did with Wes. You know, so I was taking care of Trevor. I was picking him up in the mornings and you know, showing up with a trailer, and I'd keep his sled on a trailer. And
he had a snowmobile too.
Yeah, he had a snowmobile too.
How old would he have been with a sled?
I don't know, man. That's
like a kid though.
Yeah, he was a kid, man. He was young, you know, and so I looked after him, and you know, Browner was riding for Burton at the time too, so I was shooting Browner a lot, and yeah.
And so like when you're shooting that era, like who are some of the dudes that like from, you know, that time frame that were blowing your minds when you go out filming? I know that, like, you know, there's obviously the video parts that'll come out, but like who's someone when you'd go out film and always be like, wow, like that guy's got pop, or like excited to film this guy today because he always does something sick?
Well, Devin was like the ultimate person to have in your crew. Like, he could snowmobile real well. He was, you know, amazing at reading terrain. He was like a human GPS. He knew you weren't going to ever get lost in the mountains with Devin because he knew where he was all the time. And he was a master of speed. Like, he knew how fast to go off everything. And Devin was like the guy that you would always get stuff done with Devin.
I mean, he's everyone's favorite snowboarder for a reason, or top 5, I'd say. And his style is like, till this day, there's no one to really replicate. He's kind of like, in that category of like, you know, MFM, whatever, that those people who have really special style that it's just like you can't replicate.
Yeah.
Like Devin's half cabs and 180s. Like to this day, I'm like, if I could do a half cab like Devin, I would do that every day.
Yeah, but he was so good at all parts of it. Like he was a good snowboarder, but he was just good at like what I just said. Like,
Package deal.
yeah, dude, he was. And you know, he was on time. He, you know, yeah. I mean, sometimes he got a little rowdy with the Wildcats, but most of the time, Dev was pretty pro. You know, about filming. And you know, it's funny because you know, during that time through TrueLife and Shakedown and you know, and there was one movie nobody ever talks about. What was it called? Pulse.
Pulse
Yeah.
is sick. The
Yeah, it's
editing was
super
crazy
sick.
though.
Yeah, I know. I think they tried to do something a little different.
I loved it. The footage in Pulse is
Yeah.
insane. Devin's part in Pulse is crazy.
Yeah, so that's when
Like-
I was really working with Devin a lot. Like, it's funny though, Kearns, I mean, I don't know if Kearns can see this, but Kearns would take all the good guys with him, and I'd get stuck with all the kids and all the
Trevor and
all the
Browner.
dudes that couldn't sled, and Tadashi couldn't speak English. It was like, I just would get the riffraff, you know? Like, you know, yeah, Solberg bringing ice cream up the mountain. I'm like, dude, like, a tub of ice cream. Like, you know, I was just like,
JP
I don't want to
Solberg.
say a babysitter, but I kind of was. You know? But I love those dudes, man. Yeah.
That is the best quote I've ever heard. JP Solberg brought a tub of ice cream up into the backcountry.
Well, you know where he put it? You know, we used to have those like compartments in the back of our snowmobiles. No, he put it in there. You know, by the time we got up to the mountain, it was fucking everywhere. It was like, dude, like it's hot back there. That's where your heat exchanger is. You know, and yeah, I mean, I took Heikki out for the first time. You know, he hurt himself. Done. Never came out again. Yeah, I would just get stuck with.
I mean, at the same time, stuck with the newbies, it must have been kind of exciting when they would get stuff because those dudes had some fresh style. Like that crew that
Yeah.
Browner, Trevor, Heikki, whatever.
Yeah, and I like living through people, so, you know, like I was just excited to see the reactions and, you know, take them out places they'd never been and stuff. It was fun, man. I still to this day like doing that, you know. That's why I like being a dad. When I get to live through my kid, it's fun.
I mean, you've always kind of seemed like you've been like a father figure to somebody in your life at like certain points. Sounds
Yeah,
like
it
you've had,
seems like it, you know, and then now that I look at.
And you said Wes
Fun.
is amazing, Trevor's killing it, and your
Yeah.
kid's amazing. You were meant to be a father figure.
Yeah, I guess so. Like maybe that's why I enjoy being a dad so much. Yeah.
And then after that whole time frame of TrueLife and stuff, that kind of moves into like, you know, you do Paul's Pop, that, and then you do Whiteout though.
Yeah, so what was happening is like dudes were just getting it was pretty cutthroat. You got your people's parts were being cut and people didn't like their songs. And it was just like, you know, there was always so much drama because it seemed so serious back then, you know, like yeah, it was pretty cutthroat. So, you know, if you weren't progressing or doing gnarly shit, you know, you just wouldn't even make the movie. So I think a lot of riders, you know, decided to try to do it on their own, like, you know, and you know, so the Wildcats had having some success with their films. Like, I didn't really work on those films. Like, I'm in a few of them, like, you know, but it's usually they would piggyback off of other projects, right? So, you know, you would get all the B shots.
Everyone, like Mikey
you know?
LeBlanc would have shots.
Yeah,
in it and
exactly.
stuff.
So a lot of those movies were just like mashups of just random footage. So, but I never really worked for them. But the Wildcat office in Vancouver, they had an office and they were selling clothes, and they decided to make their own film. And that's when they approached me, and they wanted me to quit Mike and come up and be their main filmer. And I was like, well, the only way I'll do this is if you pay me 12 months. Like, I'm not gonna leave Mike. You know, and the thing,
Yeah, like you said, dream job.
well, hold on a sec. So yeah, the last year I worked for Mike, they didn't want to pay me 6 months. They didn't want to pay me around. They wanted to pay me 6 months. So when Whiteout asked
They
me,
caught on.
well, it wasn't Mike. I don't want to point fingers, but yeah, there was people want more money for themselves. Like, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get into that
Yeah, and there's
because I hold no resentment. But they didn't want to pay me year round the third year I worked for them. So I said to the guys at Wildcats, and they had already come up with the name Whiteout, and they said, well, why don't you come work for us? And I said, well, if you pay me 12 months, I'll come. And they said, okay. So I went and started working for Wildcats, really, but Whiteout. And the first year I didn't have that much to do with direction and art direction and stuff like that. I just basically filmed, and we did that first movie, Positron, that I really didn't have too much say in the actual, the way the movie came out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the next year that I kind of took on more of the direction.
Was that Wear It Well then?
No, it was Big Blind.
Oh, Big Blind. Yeah, I like Big Blind a lot more than Positron, just as a film.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally.
So we had hired that motion graphic guy who was way ahead of his time. If you watch the intro of that film, like, yeah, that stuff still holds up to this day as far as motion graphics go. And
yeah, the ads and stuff like that were crazy too. It was all a little bit a step above. I remember when it came out, I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah. You know, and I got to pick the opening song, the Iggy Pop song and stuff. So it had a lot of me in it. But the thing is, it was like the worst season ever in history of, well, I shouldn't say history. My history in Whistler was like, we had no snow. We had no footage. We were like scrambling. Like we had nothing. It was like March and we still had nothing. You know, so it turned out to be such a terrible year. And we managed to put that movie together, but the writing's okay.
Yeah, it's like, I like the editing more, but like, yeah, I think Positron and stuff maybe had, well,
Positron maybe had better writing.
Yeah.
It was probably a good season.
Yeah.
You know, and then Wear It Well was a fun one, and that's when I brought on Mikey HK, and he kind of came up with the concept for it, you know, the intro and stuff, but, you know, now that I look back, I think we got in way over our heads with all of that, you know, slider stuff, and it was a tough movie. We had too many guys in it, but we were like, that's the whole reason why we started Whiteout, is to give everybody, you know, some love, you know. So
I loved the Whiteout like series, and there was like a lot of people who had like their breakout like shot in those.
Yeah.
Like Arrow, Mikey, especially those two really come to mind. When the whole series came out, I was like, I felt like that blew those two up.
Yeah, and Wear It Well was like, we had a lot of good footage in that film. I just think we just
Jesse
had
Fox,
too many
a lot of
dudes.
people.
You know, it was just like,
There was a lot of
dudes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm talking about art direction, so we had to come up with intros for everybody. Like, we were running out of ideas. Like,
yeah,
it was such
Dwayne and
fun.
TJ's intro and stuff.
fuck,
I couldn't imagine putting all that together.
Dude, it was like a lot of work. And then you know, things started to go a bit sideways again in not my personal life, but like filming. Like we weren't doing as well as we thought we were. We were getting totally raped by the distributors. Like, you know, they were giving us guarantees for our film, and then when we want our money on the guarantees, and they'd say, well, we didn't sell that many. But we're like, you guaranteed us this amount, you know, like it's in a contract. Like, do I have to get a lawyer?
Yeah, that sounds like every snowboard contract ever.
Yeah, and it's like, fuck, man, like you guys are just raping us. Like the DVD distribution.
The small guys always just get, you're like, dude.
Well, they would force you to like send a master copy, and you'd never know how many they were printing, and they would make you buy the cases from them. They'd make you do all the printing from them. They make you buy the DVDs from them, you know? So it's kind of a shady business.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like season 4 that I could tell things were going good. Riders were losing their jobs, and we weren't selling that many DVDs. And but the big thing was DC was just grabbing all these dudes to start their team. So they had grabbed Devin, they had grabbed Lowry, they grabbed Ika, Aaron Bittner, and Sean Lake had just started there. And Sean was like, you guys cannot film with Whiteout. And those were our main dudes. Like Devin, like he's like pretty much part owner of this whole scene. But Sean Lake was like, you can't shoot with Whiteout, you have to shoot with Mack Dawgs. And I totally get it. Like, they wanted maximum exposure for the launch of their boards and their whole scene. So we lost a lot of riders, and we lost a lot of funding. We lost Oakley. We were just hanging on by a thread. And I had kind of lost my patience with the whole thing. So, you know, I was just like, we got to get this one done. You know, and that's why we called it season 4. I was just like,
wrap it up.
Let's wrap this up, because this is like a sinking ship. And the DVD sales are just dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, there I was again, like fucking lost. Like, what am I gonna do? But then I got hired. Renee Hansen hired me to work for Burton for 6 months, and so I worked for Burton for a season, and it was cool. Like, yeah, I don't even remember what I did, but I worked for Burton for a season. But then I was out of a job. No more year round, and yeah, so I just didn't know where I was going with everything. But Sean Lake at DC says, we need a staff guy and we're interested in hiring you. So I thought, okay, well, there's hope. I might be able to get on at DC, full time, because Burton was going to hire me full time. They and then Renee had lost his job. So
DC really dropped in when they came in, though. They were like, they took like, at that time, they picked like the 5 best dudes.
Yeah, they came in hot, man.
And then I remember hearing just in the Whistler bubble, like, rumors of how much they offered all the guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, this company's not joking around. Like, they're dropping into being like, we're a head-to-toe snowboard sponsor.
Yeah, they came in hot, man. They were paying those guys. They had to pay them a lot of money because they just stole them from Forum and whoever everybody rode for. You know what I mean? Like,
like Devin, like, what a transition. Like, right when Forum was kind of getting, well, maybe a little bit weird or doing he just transitions over to DC, which, like, I remember being a kid and the Mountain Lab movie coming out and being like, that looks like the company that everyone wants to be on right now. Yeah,
and Quicksilver just bought them. Quicksilver was a big public company. There was like, they had cash to spend, and they were spending it, man. And they came in and swooped those guys up, and so I worked a season for Burton, and then Sean Lake approached me to go work for DC, and he offered me a 12-month deal. So for him kind of taking his riders away in the end, I ended up working for them. So, but the crazy thing is a lot of people don't realize is like, so that was 2008 and the economy was collapsing, dude. I didn't even have a contract. And I was like, oh, fuck, here we go, dude. It was really scary what was going on. And I thought I wasn't going to get a contract. I was like, okay, they're going to change their mind because the economy was collapsing and things were going really sideways. I don't know who's going to listen to this, but 2008 was scary. It was really scary.
I was too young. I remember 2008, and I remember talking to my dad on the phone on like a payphone or something like that. And he's like, you probably don't know a lot about this, but he's like, yeah, there was a big collapse in the economy. And my dad doesn't like know tons about like the stock market, blah blah blah. But he's like, you won't believe it. I had 3, because my dad owned a small business in our small hometown, and he had 3 random guys from his hometown come into the store, and like they don't know my dad barely, but they just needed to go talk to someone to vent.
Yeah.
And he's like, I had like 2 or 3 guys come to the store, they just break down into tears and say that they lost everything.
Yeah, people losing everything.
And I was like, whoa, like what is this? Like you can lose everything. Now that I'm older, I'm like, that collapse was huge.
Huge, man. Huge. I mean, massive companies were going out of business. Like massive companies. General Motors.
That's what happens when you're like, you have $10, you can buy a house.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. So I didn't think I was going to get a contract. And sure enough, they had already committed, and they signed me. So I signed on with DC as their in-house cinematographer. Again, it's a 12-month job, and I started working for DC.
And so you spent a huge part of your career filming with Devin.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I feel like I shot with him almost his whole career.
And one thing to note is that in Shakedown, you filmed J.P. Walker's first double cork. Isn't there a little story behind that? Didn't you think you missed it or something?
I didn't ever think I missed it, but it was so cutthroat back then. It was like if I did miss it, I was going to get fired, right? But then I missed the film transfer. But so how the story goes is we were in Utah. There was snowmobiles everywhere. It was noisy. I don't know if you know what it's like to shoot snowboarding when there's a bunch of people snowboarding around. It's really hard. Communication's tough, and you can't hear anything on the radios. And JP was just lapping out. He had somebody shoveling him up, and he was trying this double cork, but I didn't know what he was trying. He was like landing on his back, and he'd done it like 3 times. But you really had to conserve film back then, so you were really quick to shut the camera off. So he had done it. He had done something. I had no idea what he was doing, but I was like, it looked like he was not even going to get in close. You know what I mean? So I was really quick to get to my trigger to shut the camera off because I didn't want to waste film, because I didn't want to stop everybody to reload. There was always these like things you didn't want to do to upset the riders. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so you needed to be quick and efficient and
Not run out of film.
and not run out of film, like, you know, roll off on somebody, because then you're really fucked. But so he did it, and it looked like he was gonna land on his back again, you know. And if you look at the clip, it looks like he's about to land on his back. And so I took my hand off my, how would I have done it with my left hand? I took my hand off my lens, and I went for the trigger, and then he landed it, and I was like, oh fuck. And I kind of, you know,
Panned, but you don't even
yeah,
know.
but I don't remember, you know, I was like, fuck, did I just fuck that up? And then it's like, well, you can't look at it. So in my mind, I thought I had fucked the outrun out.
Yeah.
And then I started getting in my head going, did I not get enough of the outrun? You know, it's
Front
like,
nine, double cork,
Yeah.
first one ever done.
but I knew I had gotten it, but I just thought I had
Botched the landing, maybe.
botched the landing or didn't get enough run out, because that was a big deal. You know?
Yeah.
It's like you needed the proof.
Yeah, well, it's true,
Yeah.
especially when you do. That's not like a cab 5. That was like a, did you land the first ever blank?
Yeah, so when I got back
Did you tell JP that you think you might have, or did
Well,
you?
you know what the funny thing is Andy Wright and me were completely quiet. We didn't say anything. We didn't.
Like total veterans.
Well, no, we were both worried, because Andy was worried too. If you look behind you, there's the sequence right behind you.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
The sequence of JP is actually right behind my head.
But
Poster.
you see, he's only got 2 frames of the run out.
Oh, those frames are perfect though, Andy. By the way, because it's like the last one is bolts.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, he was scared. He rolled off on it too. I mean, like, we were both completely quiet, so they got suspicious. You know, they thought I had missed the shot. And you know, to this day, I don't really hoot and holler that much anyway. But you know, I'm just usually pretty quiet anyway. But I was really quiet, and I was in my head. I definitely was in my head, because I thought I had fucked the outrun out. But I knew I'd gotten the shot. But I got home, and everybody was like, that fucking shot better be in there, dude. And I was like, it is. And then I missed, because we used to send all our film to San Francisco, I think, to get it processed. And somehow I missed the transfer. And I missed the FedEx going out. I don't know what happened, but I didn't do it intentionally, but they thought I had done it intentionally. They thought I was buying time, because they knew I was going to get fired. And I was told by Kearns, you missed that shot, you're getting fucking fired. Pretty
Holy
much.
shit.
And so, yeah, I just remember getting the call, like, it's in there, you know? And I was like, fuck you guys, I told you it was in there. And it turns out I didn't really fuck any of it.
No, he didn't fight. The shot is perfect.
Yeah.
You watch it today, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so it was like a lot of drama, but they love drama. Kearns love drama. I mean, I hope when you listen to this, Kearns, I love you, buddy, but you're a fucking drama queen. Yeah, it was always like, it was super intense all the time.
I've heard.
Yeah, it was kind of gnarly.
I remember, I've never met Kearns, but I've met Johnson, and I've heard they're both kind of the same. And I was definitely intimidated by Johnson. Just like, even like going to his house way back in the day, I was like, whoa, you're intimidating. And I only could imagine what it would be like to meet Kearns, who
Kearns is more intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah, seeing him in the videos and stuff, I was always like, whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty serious business, you know. And you know what? And that's why I had no problems leaving my Mack Dawgs. Because I couldn't deal with that shit, man. It started to become no fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, I was like, this is fucking crazy, man. We're shooting snowboarding here. Like, I'd come home from shooting and I'd be so almost like
Stress,
depressed.
have anxiety over like the next day of filming.
It became really intense. And then when I went to work for a while, it was a little more lax, but it started to become a lot of work at Whiteout too, because I was raising the money and on the phones, dealing with I was producing, and I brought Mikey in to direct, because I didn't want to direct anymore. And you know, it was still pretty fun, but there was a lot of business side to it. Got a little easier when I went back to work for DC, because I didn't have to edit. Not that I even edited at Whiteout, but I basically would just gather assets, hang out at the lab. You know, there was not that much pressure. I would shoot, and then I think we'd give the footage to, I don't know, did we make a DC movie? We didn't make a DC movie till the last year.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of you did Must Be Nice was the last project I think they made fully, and then they did like those 3 web series that you filmed.
Yeah,
with Ika and Devin.
so it was a little less stressful. There was less pressure. There was
until what happens next is that you have to film X Games with Devin, and that must have had like for the first time like re-up the pressure. Like you film with Kearns, and you're like, well, there's a lot of pressure. Then you ride with DC for a few years.
I only did that real snow 1 year.
But that was a lot of pressure, I'm assuming.
Not really. I mean, I know you read that in that interview. I think that question was specific to that.
Okay,
so I kind of
nice.
I don't look back and seeing that pressure really. Nah, no.
I
only
was
did it 1 year.
terrified to be, not the X Games one, but like filming with, a camera that you can't review.
Well, by that time we'd gone to the HVX. We were shooting digital. So my last year at Whiteout was the last year I shot film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so season 4 was it. So then we all went.
Actually, that makes complete sense, because that's like, I was filming for Sandbox, and the first year I filmed for Sandbox was the last year that they were shooting on 16.
Yeah. So,
and I remember it was like, it's so expensive to get that processed that it's like they weren't just pulling the trigger on it. And then the next year, everyone's like, woo! Like, I can just let this thing roll. We can collect as much footage as we want.
It was really not Mike's decision at McIntyre. It was, what was his name that worked for Mike?
I wouldn't know. Out of my reach.
Anyway, Brad Kramer. Brad Kramer was heading up Mack Dawgs, and Kramer was all about the HVX. And Kramer told Mike, we're going HVX. And I think Mike wanted to keep shooting film. And, he had a Super 16, so the aspect ratio was proper. And Mike, if it was up to Mike would have probably kept shooting film. But Kramer went HVX, and the minute Dogger went HVX, everybody was like, that's it. If Mike can shoot that camera, if Mack Dawgs is shooting that camera, everybody should shoot that camera. Like, it's good enough for Mike, it's good enough for everybody. So everybody went digital. It was a sad day, actually.
And then that's when film ended.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, yeah, I wonder how much money the film industry lost from all the...
Probably tons, man. Yeah, it was. I mean, the problem with the HVX, it was a cool camera, but it was like a camcorder. It was like, it wasn't that much fun to shoot with.
In comparison to what the camera's now, like, what do you shoot on right now?
I shoot on a red camera, and it's a lot closer to film than the HVX was.
Wow.
Just the way it operates, and I mean, I can get all technical. It feels a lot more like you're shooting with a film camera than the HVX.
So the HVX was one of your least favorite cameras to shoot with?
Yeah, totally.
You'd rather shoot with like a high 8?
I probably would have. Well, maybe not, but yeah. I mean, the HVX was great. I mean, it made me money. I mean, I ran that camera for 5 years. It was light. There was a lot of positives, but it wasn't as much fun to shoot, and it took the niche out of what we were doing. We were 16 mil shooters. There, you had to be trusted with the film. And people, we were niche, and then now anybody.
Exactly. It's like the new snowmobile, like a good comparison would be the old snowmobiles that you and Devin used to use. That's like a tool that only good people could get around and get so far. Now, you go out anywhere, and the random Joe Schmo on a 2019 can go just as far as you, and they don't have the same skill set, but they're allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, you give somebody a camera like the Scarlett, it's like anyone can film good stuff on it, but it takes a real good, operator to use it to its full potential. Yeah,
I mean, it was just a definite shift at that point, and I just ran that camera for 4 years, I think, because I didn't need to go to anything else. Nobody needed it. I was working for DC. They were happy with the footage.
Imagine you were filming me on that one board slide 270 out that I did that one day on film. How much? Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I do remember. It was fucking cold.
I think you did it first try, Joe. I think that first clip's good. Do you want to come review it? Nah, I'm good. I'm going to keep trying to do it better. 5 hours later, go use the first shot that you told me to come review.
Yeah, you did end up using that shot.
Yeah.
But what was a real game changer and was kind of like, to this day, is kind of stressful. Is like getting the riders come to you right away to look at their shot. And like when we shot film, you didn't have that. So then that added pressure. Like they'd come and look at their shot, and if they didn't like it, like,
awkward animosity.
Yeah, it's awkward. It's, you should have shot it from there. It looks small from here. Or it looks, shoot it looser or wider. It's just like, there's all this.
So much feedback.
Yeah, I was like, dude.
And then everybody has their different way of going about it. Some people are going to be vocal. Other people are just going to like walk away from you, and you're going to be like, this is insane. Because I do the same thing with my filmers all the time. I'm the dude walking away being like,
well, it felt big and that didn't make it look big. But,
Yeah.
you know, then you put yourself in their shoes and they're like, how about you actually go big then?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd say. It doesn't look big because it's not big, dude. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I have a fisheye for a reason, bro.
Yeah. I'm not a magician, man. Like, that's the shot. It's small because it's small.
And you were filming when it was ruthless. Like, people were going, I mean, there are a select amount of people that are still like really pushing it in the backcountry and rails, but I mean, I feel like it's tamed down a bit. It's gotten a little bit more technical, but less like large. Where like when you were filming those old movies, like people were sending to the walls.
Yeah,
like,
and you know, because back then you could do something and then just blow up because of this one thing you did that was super gnarly, right? Like you didn't, you know, it got to video parts, but a lot of guys got known for doing a couple really gnarly things. So people were sending it, man. Like, and to get noticed, that's how you needed to get noticed. You didn't have Instagram and you know, Instagram story or
people would wait the whole year for that video and everyone would go see it. And if your part was good, it meant something.
Yeah, it meant something, you know. So it's a little different now. Not that it was better then, but guys were sending it. Like, you know, that's why the Whistler Classics hold up so well, is because those guys searched out some of the biggest jumps they could find in the backcountry, and they still are the biggest jumps.
Yeah, and that we're the Man Boys, our crew, we're still hitting those jumps.
Yeah, because they're
the biggest, they're the best, they have the best landings,
exactly.
And they're all found by all the pioneers, and we've been searching forever to find new stuff, and even like Mikey in somewhat of a way would be a comparison to like the old Devin. You know, he knows everything about the Whistler back because he learned from all those dudes. But he like when I see him find a new jump, I'm so like, wow, even Mikey's finding something. But it's tough.
It's tough.
It is not easy to go out there and just be like, oh, we're gonna find new stuff this year. Like, good luck. Like Devin's found 90% of the stuff you're gonna find.
It's hard, and most of the stuff that was found were usually not too big of bills. So now, if you really want to find something big and new, it's a lot of building, and some of the time. And I
feel like snowboarding is kind of heading in a more freestyle direction that's a little bit more organic than the building blocks, which I actually kind of like. And I mean, I think the filmers are a little bit happy with it too because they don't have to sit there and build a giant cheese wedge all day.
Yeah, I didn't like building.
Yeah, were you okay, we're building this jump, like so excited to shovel and build huge blocks for 5 hours?
It just was not
or
fun.
Just see
Devin
back
to work in construction.
Yeah.
You know, there I was back on the job site. Yeah.
Devin's like, I'm just going to pat this down and do a half cab. You're like, thank God.
Yeah, so I mean, working with Devin, there was not a lot of building. I think he didn't like it either. I don't know.
Do you have anybody that you didn't necessarily like filming? Like, not because you didn't like them as a person, but you guys just like, you know, didn't vibe out in the backcountry and didn't see eye to eye?
Not really. I mean, toward the end of my stay at DC, I was just physically tired at the end of the day and physically tired in the mornings because we would just go so much and there was so much pressure on these guys to not lose their jobs. So we were going out in a lot of bad weather. And you know, I was getting older. I was just tired. And, you know, I guess I was cranky. I didn't want to be out there. And they were under pressure, so they were cranky too. And yeah, a lot of like...
Contract season in general, if you're the filmer, must be... That adds a little bit of pressure without... Like, because they're trying to have a year where they don't get cut, and that adds tension because that's the person's livelihood.
Yeah,
and
so
if they lose,
things got tense.
Yeah,
things got tense. Me and Ika used to butt heads a lot, but you know, I love Ika. Like, you know, he's like family. Yeah, but we used to argue a lot. Yeah.
I can see that.
And you know, and Devin, those guys kind of would get a kick out of getting a rise out of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would push my buttons for sure. But I love those guys. Yeah. All of them still. Like,
when I saw you guys when I first got on DC. And I like saw you with Devin and Ika and Laurie and Bittner. You guys like looked like a family.
Yeah.
It was like I was like that's something special. And it made me want to be a part of it more because of how like cool you guys were actually all close friends. Where I kind of don't like the brands that have a disconnect with like the team and stuff. It's kind of cool how that was run. Like when I was like even Colin Adair, he was the photographer. Like, you guys had, like, a special little bond. Like, when I was around you guys, I was like, damn, this is cool.
Yeah, well, we got, you know, we were like family, but we also fought like family. Like, we would get into some serious, like, arguments.
I love it.
Yeah. Like, Ika didn't talk to me for, like, 2 weeks one time.
Why? Can you elaborate?
I don't know. Who fucking knows? Me and him would butt head the most. Yeah. But it's funny because he's like, I find he's the person I see more and I feel closest to, him and Devin, you know? Maybe because they're around a little bit more. I haven't seen Devin in a long time, and I feel bad because I should pick up the phone and call him, but he's busy with his life. I'm busy with my life, and yeah, I just haven't talked to Devin in a while. But it's funny because he still keeps the sled here, so I see he come more, and yeah, it's like, yeah. It's like,
well, I mean, you've filmed so many pros over the years, and it's weird when you're filming a project and, you know, you're out there your last day and they hit the jump and they ride away and you guys hug and do, oh, sick shot, and then you go to the parking lot, load up your sleds, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm headed here, and you don't really realize that the season's over, and then that person loses their job, and then you never see them again.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and there's been a lot of that through my life. It's like, oh, I'm probably never going to see that dude again. And I spent so much time with him. You know?
And like 2 days before that last time that they left, it seems like you guys are just going to be best friends and hang out forever. Like,
yeah.
I can only imagine filming those DC videos and being a part of that family for so long, and then it seems like it's forever. And then Brian Teeney lives back in Australia now. Laurie lives, you know, back in Europe. Ika's down in California. Even Devin's not that far, but it's like,
yeah, you don't see them very much. Yeah, and there's some guys that I, you know, like Yanni Malmi, you know, yeah, is he gonna ever come back to Squamish to hang out? Probably not. I probably never see him again.
And did you film Yanni a lot?
Yeah, I was good friends with Yanni. I felt, you know, Yanni and Heikki, and you know, there's a lot of dudes like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't, unless I go to Finland, I don't think I'm gonna see those guys again. You know,
which is, yeah. I mean, I guess you're just grateful that you bumped into them, crossed paths, and that's all you can. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Want to keep going?
Hell yeah.
What? All right.
I mean, we can wrap it up too.
No, I'll keep going, man.
I mean,
I feel like I'm like less nervous now. I was really nervous at the beginning. I was like,
me too. I haven't done it for a while.
Yeah, I was super nervous, and I don't know, where do you want to go from here? I went from DC. I mean, I worked for BrainFarm for a while.
You worked for BrainFarm, like
I worked on the fourth phase.
No way.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. How was that? Like, that's like the pinnacle of cinematography.
Yeah, it was intense, man. I was thrown right back into I had kind of not shot any snowboarding for a while, and I was just thrown right back into the blender, man, and it was pretty gnarly, man. That's when I realized, like, wow, I had kind of been away from it, and I was like, wow, is this ever dangerous? Like, Wyoming is a dangerous place, man. And
really? I've never seen the terrain live.
The terrain's super steep, and the snowpack is really sketchy, and you got to travel through creeks and train traps, man, to get everywhere. And I think just from being programmed from years to stay away from those things, we had no choice but to go through those kind of things. And it was intense, man, and it was a lot of work and early mornings. And yeah, man, I was so glad to get out of there alive, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's something that, I mean, filming backcountry in general, some of the days you go out there and you're with a crew and then something happens out there and then you make it home. It's like, I can't explain how many times I got into my truck and I'm like, I'm so grateful to be starting this truck and be leaving this parking lot.
Yeah.
Which is like, there's a part of it that I don't like, that I'm like, I don't even enjoy that much anymore. And I ride for some brands that aren't putting the pressure for me to keep doing that.
Yeah. Which
it seemed like when I first started riding backcountry, it didn't matter what you wanted. That's what you had to do.
Yeah.
There was like a structured way to be a professional backcountry snowboarder. And if you weren't down with that program, it just like wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Where now it's like, I kind of feel like you can be a little bit more chill. And it's like, you don't have to be there, like, well, maybe because there's nobody around anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember going to the Brandywine parking lot and having, you know, your crew, DC crew there, Forum crew there, Burton crew there, Absinthe crew there, Standard crew, People crew, Videograss crew. Yeah. Like,
it was
if you could get up early, and the people who knew, Devin, Mikey, DCP, they were going to be standing on every best feature, and you're not going to be riding shit. Now we go to the parking lot, and it's just like, oh, it's just us again. No one else buys snowmobiles anymore.
Yeah, yeah, but you know what? That was kind of fun, man. It was competitive. It was like trying to beat crews to certain things.
I heard you guys were pretty early.
Yeah, we were early, but we had good sledders, right? You know, so we would beat a lot of people. It was fun to pass somebody stuck like, on the way to the same
Some new
jump.
Videograss guy that you don't know, just like blast by Ben Block when he was young or something. Yeah, it's like
it's fun to beat the Standard crew. Yeah, it was fun. It's super fun. Like, I was just lucky. I worked with Tadashi, who's an amazing sledder. Devin, amazing sledder. Kale, amazing sledder.
I remember so many times being the guy stuck that not necessarily you guys, but people would be passing, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's super fun. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like, I still want to shoot snowboarding, and I'm going to try to this winter. You know, it seems like we had such a bad winter last year that nobody needed me. So it sounds like there's a bunch of snowboard projects this year, which is kind of cool because I feel like
there are quite a few ones.
Yeah, well, I think maybe people are realizing just Instagram isn't cutting it anymore. Maybe people are looking for something a little more. Yeah. It's a little better marketing. I don't know, man. It's kind of cool. It's cool that there's all these snowboard projects.
I think that this is just my opinion. I think that we've hit a point where social media isn't outdoing movies and movies isn't outdoing social media. There's like a balance. So every once in a while, I think brands realize that it's still important to like make a team movie, invest in a project, and not just have a good social media account, because that doesn't really get the core kids that psyched. You still have to make those like, End and like Shorty's movies.
Yeah,
and
I think
TrueLife
if you have a good film to base your social media around, your social media is going to be so much better. You know what I mean? So if you create a project and then base all your social media off that, and you use that movie to get the assets you need for all those other things,
exactly,
your assets are going to be way better. So I think companies are realizing that, and people are trying to build online communities. And
you sound like you should be like the VP of marketing for something now. This guy's got some wisdom.
Yeah, well, I don't want to do that because I want to be outside. Yeah.
There we go, going with the flow still.
Exactly, I don't want to be a marketing director.
So right now you've just filmed a bunch of what have you been doing as of late with filming?
Well, I just shoot everything now, and it's amazing because I still get to shoot action sports. I just get to really mix it up. So, I mean, I shoot a lot of mountain biking, which I really enjoy because as a cinematographer, the mountain bike stuff is cool because guys, a lot of it they can do multiple times. Aesthetically, it's not just white, and there's a lot of nuance to the way they ride their bikes that you can capture. It's just fun as a cinematographer because you can kind of get a little more creative.
It's not -40.
Yeah, you can walk around, you can run, you can, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying shooting snowboarding is still, it's just different because snowboarding is like, it's like you need to get the in run, you need to get the air, and you need to get the run out. Or, mountain biking, a lot of times you don't need the landing, you don't need the proof. You can shoot something from behind, and people are just going to know they landed it. And same with dirt biking, you can shoot something from behind, and you don't need the landing a lot of times. And they're all so different, but they're also the same, and it's just fun to be able to go from mountain biking to motocross to snowboarding to skiing.
You've really just you've filmed your entire life, like every action sport.
Pretty much. I haven't filmed much skateboarding, but I've shot a lot of photos of skateboarding, and I think that's how I learned.
Do you have some pretty sick photos of old skateboarding? Do you have any photos of Sluggo or?
No, I have photos of Tom Boyle, Bill Weiss, Justin Boekma, Kevin Boekma, like pretty legendary dudes from Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a bunch.
You have some old slides? Because when I got here, you had a bunch of slides on that. What's that whole thing
That's
called?
Just a light board.
A light board with a bunch of old slides?
Yeah, just slides.
Wow.
Yeah, those, I have lots of prints from me shooting skateboarding in Toronto, but, it's funny, I look at those photos and I'm like, fuck, I sucked, Man, my timing was good, but my framing sucked, and the flash I was using sucked. You know what I mean? Now to the standards today, it's like, wow, I really had to really learn how to do this. The one thing I did have is just know when to press the button, because it was I didn't have a camera that shot a sequence. I would just have to press it at the right time, right?
And you had a good finger trigger, which is important.
A good what?
A trigger finger.
Yeah. I guess. And that's, I just learned. And it's funny, like they say, the first 10,000 photos you take suck. Well, you know what? They're right.
Well, what do they say? The first, it takes 10,000 hours to be a professional at anything.
Yeah, and that's so true. And then you get older, you realize, it's just hours spent. And, not in all cases, but most cases. That's why heli pilots and pilots and certain jobs, it's all based on hours, right?
That's why I can do a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not very good at talking, but I talk twice as much as everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, in day-to-day life.
So you have
You've been
more
on trips
hours.
with me. I go more hours
Yeah.
long.
So what do you tell me about myself? You've traveled with me. What? Because I like to travel.
Dude, you're like the biggest goat. Hanging out with you is hanging out with like I don't know. I would compare the first time I was like hanging out with you, I was just tripping out because I actually knew who you were because I was like I'm like a snowboard nerd. You know what I mean? I watched the credits of movies. I've known that you filmed all those movies. I mean, you and Devin look like brothers when you're hanging out. So you're like, oh, there's the most legendary filmer ever, and there's the most legendary snowboarder ever, and they're both nice to me. This is the best.
So it was
pretty.
for you.
It was pretty special.
Was I crusty?
Pardon me?
Was I crusty?
No, I mean I liked your vibe, and I mean like you and Jeeves really clicked,
Yeah.
and Jeeves always giving me a hard time. You know what I mean? That's just like our relationship but like we have so much love for each other, and like, you and Jeeves were a special like click.
You know why? Because he was a lot like the dudes in Toronto.
Yeah.
You know, he's a skater.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's who I grew up around, and his grittiness.
You guys clicked.
Oh yeah, because he reminded me of all my buddies from Toronto. He was, chuffing on his ciggies and getting fucking wasted.
Yeah, I'm his biggest fan.
Yeah,
and I mean, yeah. So like, yeah, the first time we would all hang out, I was just like mesmerized by the crew. I mean, being a part of that DC thing back then for me was really special because those were the dudes. Like, I loved Aaron Bittner snowboarding. I watched all the old Tech 9 movies. I watched Devin growing up. Laurie's part in Promo Copy was like my favorite part ever. Ika's always like had the best style.
Yeah.
And then there's this legendary photographer. I knew Colin and the legendary filmer yourself, and it's like, and then Jeeves, my childhood good friend / a guy I've always really looked up to, especially with his style. And I just like how he doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, like, I just appreciate he's like unapologetically himself.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes for sure he's gonna feel like an asshole, maybe, or like not. But like for me, I've always been inspired by that because when I was like a little bit younger, I was a little bit like insecure, and I'm like a farm kid, you know. So I was just like figuring my shit out, and he's like the kid exactly like 13 years old, rolling a joint, all stee with a Forum hoodie on.
Yeah.
And I was just like the kid from the farm looking at him like, who is this kid? Like, that's my favorite logo. That's my favorite movie. And you snowboard for them? Like, because Jeeves was on Forum. You guys were filming TrueLife, and the AM roster was Jed Anderson and Andrew Jeeves.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't really know I'm going with that, but it was all just pretty special for me to be a part of that for a little bit.
Yeah, it was fun times working for DC.
Yeah, no, it's different times. I mean, Dev's still there.
It's different times, but I wouldn't say it's better. Well, at DC, it's different times. Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like we didn't recover that well from 2008. I just don't think the industry recovered. I don't know. It's just times changed after 2008. There was just less marketing money, and yeah.
One of the only companies I would say, like, Burton still like throws down, and so Vans has continually, like, they just grow and grow and grow, and like their marketing, I feel like, is whoever runs that company is just genius, because like I ride for it, but I also, if I didn't ride for it, I still just like love what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, they still invest in team projects. They're really good at like picking the right guys to be on the brand. Like, from the dudes who work in Canada to the States, it's all like really tastefully done. And I mean, you need those dudes. I mean, like I've heard all about it. Like, the guys who pick the Forum team and stuff like that, it's like you need a special person to design that team. It wasn't like they were just picking anybody. They were like, we need the Boson guy, we need the Devin dude, we need JP, and it's a selective group, and then you come up with something special. And I feel like DC had that for a bit when I was part of it. Not talking shit on DC, but
they put a good team together.
When they first put the team together and like Mountain Lab came out and stuff, Simone Chamberlain and Eddie Wall and stuff, it was just something pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Vans, their shoes are timeless, so they're still selling lots of shoes.
Hell yeah! Did you ever skate a pair of Vans back then?
Yeah, I used to wear Vans. Yeah.
Back in the day, the checkers or?
I might have had a pair of checkers, but my kid lives in those things.
Dang.
Yeah, he loves his Vans.
Yeah, likewise. So, do you have any like? We can kind of wrap up here or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about anything else. I mean, yeah, I think we covered everything.
I think we covered everything. Yeah. That was a really good interview, and I think there's so much. Anyone who's been excited to follow snowboarding and stuff, like, your career is amongst one of the most interesting and amazing ones as far as I'm concerned. You've pretty much filmed all of my favorite snowboarders at one part. You've documented thousands and thousands and thousands of people's favorite tricks. Like without it's really interesting to go behind the scenes and like talk with people like you and Surface and people who've documented like the history of snowboarding over the years, just sheerly out of the passion for, like you said, wanting to be in the mountains.
Yeah.
For no other reason other than you just liked hanging out with those dudes and you liked snowboarding. And you just happened to film all of the coolest things that ever happened almost.
Yeah, I had no clue where it was going.
Yeah, by you going with the flow, you literally, like, who knows where I'd be right now if you didn't film that JP double and stuff. I don't even know where I'd be without all the movies that you made. So it's like, I mean, a million of us kids are forever grateful for everything that you've filmed.
You're welcome.
Anthony Vitale, you're a fucking legend. I can't thank you enough for coming on. You've
Thanks for
inspired
having me.
millions of us.
I'm glad we got it done because I was nervous. This is probably the first interview I've ever done.
Well, I think it was perfect. And yeah, is there anything you want to say? Any shout outs?
No, man. Just go with the flow.
I like it.
Enjoy life.
I love it, dude.
It's
That's
short.
a good note.
No,
Life is short. Thanks so much for coming on, dude.
you're welcome, buddy.
So much love for what you do. And
Thanks,
hopefully
man.
we can get out there this winter and film some stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks
do
so
it.
much, Anthony.
Okay.
Peace, everybody.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966. 66!
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?